Hello my friends, welcome back to my channel. I love to have you back here. If you're new, hi, I'm Stephanie and I'm a language enthusiast that currently speaks 8 languages and is learning a couple of others. And on this channel I share tips and tricks about how I do this, how I learn languages. And in this video I want to talk to you about motivation, because I think motivation is really important. And coming into 2023, I'm sure many of us have resolutions, or if we don't, then it's kind of like at least we have some ideas of what we want to achieve in the new year, and we're kind of more future oriented, just naturally thinking about the future as an old year closes, right? So I think it could be very useful to have this video at this point if you're somebody that is trying to pick up a second language or a third or whatever, and you are looking to become a polyglot perhaps, or perhaps just add just one more language to your repertoire. Whatever your case might be, it's really good to know how to kickstart motivation. And here's why I think this, because in general, we need both motivation and discipline in language learning. I don't think that we can really be successful without both. And because sometimes we need discipline when we're just not feeling the motivation, no matter what. We're all gonna have those times, even if it is a language that we absolutely love. So that's crucial. But then motivation is also crucial because you can't always rely on discipline. There's only so much you can do if you really don't have motivation. You're just forcing yourself all of the time. So you kind of need to be motivated, but then you need disciplines for those times when you're not motivated. In any case, I really think that both are crucial, and in this video I want to delve into motivation specifically. So here's my first tip on motivation, and it is not to think of how much more there's still left to go, not to think about how big the mountain is and how you're just at the base and there's so much to get to the top. It's really important not to kind of look at the whole thing and get overwhelmed, because in that case many of us do get overwhelmed. I think there's very few people that would not get overwhelmed when they see like a big chunk of work, because even if it is enjoyable work, it's still, you know, learning a skill is always a work. So it's important to kind of focus on smaller steps. Set smaller goals along the way, you know, don't focus on when you're going to be fluent. You can do that, and I'm going to touch upon that in the video later, how you can use that to your advantage. But if you are one of those people that really gets discouraged by seeing like a whole pile of so many things to learn, really focus on what you can achieve at the A1 level, for example, according to the European framework for languages, or you know, what you can achieve when you're a beginner, what you can achieve when you're going to be able to order some food in a cafe. Focus on that and just kind of set smaller goals. Set those goals of, okay, I'm going to be able to order in a cafe. I'm going to be able to greet somebody in their native language on the street. Doesn't really matter what it is, but just kind of look for those smaller goals that you're going to be able to achieve, so that, you know, you can feel more motivated instead of overwhelmed. Tip number 2 is to pick a language that you're drawn to. Truly, motivation comes if we're truly interested in something, right? Sometimes, as I said, you do need discipline, because then even if you love the language to death, there's still going to be times where you're kind of lacking the motivation. But in general, it's really going to help to have motivation if you pick a language that you're already drawn to. So pick something like that, because otherwise it becomes really, really difficult. You're going to have to rely on discipline all of the time. And it's good to have a language that you like. And it's also good, even if it is one that you're not that crazy about, to find things that you can connect with, be it within the culture, within the country, you know, through travel, through food, through friends that you have that speak that language, anything to just kind of make you more connected with that language and make sure that you are drawn to it, that you like it, that you enjoy it. So, you know, either look for those things or just pick a language that you're already crazy about to begin with. So that way you can enjoy the process. And speaking of enjoying the process, in addition to liking the language or the culture or both, it is also important to like what you're doing. So what does that look like? It looks like finding methods that you actually enjoy. You know, if you hate translation, or perhaps you really hate grammar books, or maybe, you know, those kind of drills that you find in many self-study books are just not your cup of tea, eliminate that and focus only on stuff that you like. I've spoken before about comprehensible input, but it's not just about the input being comprehensible, it's also about it being enjoyable. So part of enjoying the process is to be studying a language that you like to begin with, but part of it is also to just do activities that you like, and that's going to be very helpful in retaining your motivation and in having more days where you feel motivated versus days where you have to use discipline. Tip number 4 is to celebrate the little moments. So here's what I mean by that. When you're first able to read an article in a foreign language, or you understand a joke in a movie that you're watching in that language, or anything like that, truly it can be whatever you want, take a second to pause and appreciate that moment. Celebrate it even in some way that you find appropriate, but it's important to acknowledge those moments instead of just kind of being like a language learning robot, just goes to the next step and goes to the next step, and you just kind of keep learning without pausing to celebrate those little moments. And here's why that's very important. Every time that you hit one of those milestones, every time that you're able to understand something for the first time, it just really, really helps with motivation. There's so many times where I can think of the first time that I was able to just kind of feel like I've made progress in a certain language, especially at the beginner level. It's like, wow, it just makes such a big difference. And then you feel so motivated when you pause and, appreciate that moment. You feel so motivated to keep going afterwards, as opposed to if you're just like breezing through those moments, you're not paying any attention to those small wins. Because a week ago, you couldn't even do that. You couldn't even, understand a joke in a movie, and now you can. And that's a huge deal. And it's important to celebrate those moments because they really help you keep your motivation or respark it if you've lost it. In addition to celebrating those little moments, because they can come kind of without you knowing when they're gonna come. Sometimes you just kind of get surprised that you're able to do something new in a language. But in addition to that, it's good to have some plan, especially if you're struggling with motivation. So what I mean is kind of have smaller chunks of goals that you kind of set along the way. It could be the moment where you learn the alphabet, and then it can be the moment where you're able to have a simple conversation about where you're from, some basics. And then those little goals along the way that could go up to the advanced level when you're able to discuss philosophy or something. It's just kind of having those goals, and every time you reach one of them, give yourself a pat on the back, a reward of your own liking that you feel will be good to kind of reward yourself a little bit. And then that also helps with motivation, especially if you find that you struggle with motivation. Having those set goals and giving yourself a reward when you achieve them can be really exciting and stimulating. So try that, because a lot of the times, celebrating the little moments, as I said before, can be a little unpredictable because you don't know when you're gonna hit them. But then when you also have those little goals, they're just like surprises, and you feel great when you achieve them, and you also have those goals that you set for yourself and you reward yourself when you achieve them. It can be both, the ones that you predicted and the ones you didn't, and kind of celebrating both can be a huge win. And it can also make you much more excited about the language that you're learning. Another thing that's super useful is when you feel like you lost motivation, take advantage of those moments that we just talked about, the scheduled goals, the unexpected ones, just those wins that you have in your win column, things that you learn to do in your target language, and do them. So if you feel like you're losing motivation, but you know that you're able to have simple conversations with others in your target language, go online and find somebody and have that little conversation with them. Or perhaps watch another series of your favorite TV show, read an article in a newspaper, anything like that. Anything you've mastered. It really depends on what exactly you've mastered. But go ahead and do those things where you previously rewarded yourself and you know that you know how to do, and go ahead and do them. And doing it is kind of gonna trigger you back, take you back to that moment where you accomplished those things and you're like, oh, I can do that. And when I started, I couldn't do that. And you kind of remember this when you're doing those wins again, when you're kind of doing those things that you practiced, those skills that you picked up, and you're doing them. And that's kind of taking you right back there and just kind of making you feel all those good feels again. So it can be super helpful. And in order to do that, it might be useful, especially if you're prone to forgetting how far you've come, and if you're prone to just focusing on the future, as I am. And, if you're prone to that, it could also be useful if you kind of keep a little diary of the little wins. You're like, now I'm able to do this, now I'm able to do that. Keep a little, I guess like a language diary, perhaps. Just jot down what you've accomplished, and then when you lose motivation, you can kind of open that file, or take out that notebook, and you can go back and you can see, oh yeah, that's when I understood that song in French for the first time. Let me go ahead and play that for myself. That kind of thing can be super helpful. And I kind of already touched upon it, but it's important to remind yourself that all of those things that you can do now, you couldn't do in the beginning. And whenever you're losing that motivation, it's important to remind yourself how far you've come, and to just kind of compare yourself to a previous version of yourself and just how much you've achieved. And that can really help you be excited to achieve more. And if you're right at the very beginning and you're like, okay, I don't have motivation, it's day one, I don't know what to do, then, you know, my other tips about picking the language you like, doing things that you like, etc., can be super helpful to kickstart your passion for the language. And then along the way, the rewards can really keep you in check. And now we're going back full circle to something that I promised in the beginning. When I was telling you how you shouldn't look at how big the mountain is, well, yes, in terms of like steps and how much you have to get there, you should not think of that. But as promised, you can think of the end goal, and here's how. Imagine being fluent, and that can be super useful on day one. It can be super useful in the middle of your language learning. It can be super useful at any stage of your language learning. Imagine being fluent and what you're going to be able to do with that language once you're fluent. Play out the scenario in your head. Go over all of the reasons and find your why for learning that language. Is it to connect with your relatives abroad? Is it to travel? Is it for business? You know, is it because you simply love the culture? Is it because of all of those things at the same time that you're learning? What is your why? And then also what you're going to be able to achieve. So imagine, you know, that you are in Costa Rica and you're ordering a cafe on the beach if you're studying Spanish, or perhaps you are negotiating in German in a business meeting. Just whatever your why is, kind of imagine the scenario in which you're fluent and, you know, see yourself in your mind's eye in that scenario. That can be super inspirational, because a lot of the times, especially maybe not in the beginning, but as we go along with language learning, we kind of forget why we started to learn a language in the first place, and we kind of forget why is it that we picked up this language. And it's very important to remind yourself why, but also to imagine everything that you're going to be able to do with your knowledge of that language once you're fluent. And when you remind yourself of that, you can be inspired over and over again. So there you have it. Those are the tips I have when it comes to keeping your motivation in language learning, or sparking it to begin with. If you have anything else that keeps you motivated, please share in the comments down below, because I feel like there's so many things we can do for motivation. I'm sure I've missed some. So share with the community, you know, what you know and what you've learned about motivation and what helps you stay motivated. That is extremely useful to language learners out there. So feel free to do that. And as always, if you're enjoying those videos, please like them and subscribe to my channel. This truly helps my channel, and it really helps me as a creator to keep going with these videos and to keep sharing what I'm sharing. Thank you again for watching. I will see you here next Wednesday, and in the meantime, I hope you're having wonderful holidays and that you're doing very well. See you soon. Bye for now.